considered and called among us the Diagnostics for the glorifying of the first producer of each family. And that is why, my dear grandfather, every year during these Diagnostics we all remembered and talked only of you, and each one of us strove with his whole being to manifest the sincere wish that your destiny may constantly create for you those conditions of being existence which might aid you quickly and easily to bring your reason up to the required sacred gradation, and that thereby you might the sooner finish your present ordinary being existence, personally burdensome for you. With these last solemnly pronounced words, Hussein ended his reply. "Very well, my boy," said Beelzebub. "We will talk about the sacred sacrament of the Seruazar when we return to our dear Caritas. There I will explain to you sometime in detail where and how the sacred sacrament of Seruazar proceeds with the substances being exioehari for the continuation of one's species, and on what occasions and in what way the mixing and subsequent results of the two kinds of exioehari are obtained. One kind is transformed for the affirming principle in those beings apparatuses, which on our planet Caritas are the beings activus, and on your planet Earth, the beings of the male sex. And the other kind is transformed for the denying principle in those beings apparatuses, which among us on the planet Caritas are the beings passivus, and on the planet Earth, the beings of the female sex. Come now and let us talk about these higher perfected being bodies, that is, about souls, who came on to this holy planet Purgatory to which all my foregoing explanations have referred. And so, from the very beginning, when these higher being parts arose in this way and were perfected in beings to the required sacred gradation of objective reason, that is to say, when in accordance with the lower midnel-in of the sacred Heptaparaparshanach, the body Kesdjan was, thanks to the second being food, formed in beings, and in accordance with the higher midnel-in of the same sacred law, the third highest being body was, thanks to the third being food, coated and perfected. And when these completely perfected higher being parts were divided from the lower being parts, then they were deemed worthy to be immediately united with the most holy prime source, and began to fulfill their divine foreordained purpose. This continued so right up to that time when that terrifying cosmic event occurred, which, as I've already told you, is now called the Chute God Latanical period. Until this common cosmic misfortune, all the higher being bodies which arose and were perfected in certain tetartocosmoses, and in their first generations, were united immediately with the most holy protocosmos itself, because their common presences had already actualized results fully corresponding to it. The point is that before this terrifying cosmic event of which I am speaking, the sacred Theomert Malogos, which issued from the most holy Son Absolute, was still in a pure state, without the admixture of any extraneously caused arisings whatsoever with their own subjective properties. And when this sacred Theomert Malogos came into the spheres of those planets on which the sacred crystallizations arose, and from the results of the transformations of which higher being bodies were coated and perfected through beings' apparatuses, then these latter received their presences exactly as they had to to correspond to the required conditions of existence in the sphere of the most holy Son Absolute. But afterwards, when the mentioned common cosmic misfortune occurred, on account of which the sacred Theomert began to issue from the most holy Son Absolute, with the admixture of subjective properties of extraneously caused arisings, then from that time, these sacred cosmic arisings ceased to have the possibility of corresponding to the required conditions of existence in the sphere of the most holy Prime Source. And this admixture of extraneously caused arisings began to be obtained in the sacred Theomert Malogos owing to the following, and I must add, unforeseen causes. When each separate, higher, perfected being body becomes an independent individual and acquires in itself its own law of sacred Triamazikamno, it begins to emanate similarly to the most holy Son Absolute, but in miniature. And when many of these perfected, independent, sacred individuals had been assembled on the most holy Son Absolute, then between the emanations of these sacred individuals and the atmosphere of the most holy Son Absolute, there was established what is called a Geneo-Triamazikamnian contact. And those results were obtained, which brought on this terrifying misfortune for the higher being perfected parts, of which I've already told you. Thereupon the action of the results of this Geneo-Triamazikamnian contact soon became harmonized with the already existing actions of our most holy Son Absolute itself. And from that time the sacred Theomert Malogos began to issue changed. But nevertheless the primary consequences of the results of this contact had already had time during a certain period to change the harmonious movement of many solar systems, and to produce a disharmony in the inner functioning of certain of their planets. It was just then that there became separated from the solar system called Clarfogo, that famous planet which exists alone in space and has quite exceptional particularities, and which is at the present time called remorse of conscience. This Geneo-Triamazikamnian contact occurred because in the atmosphere itself of the most holy Son Absolute, various sourced unusual vibrations began, as I've already said, to issue from these higher being bodies, and to unite with the emanations of the most holy Son Absolute, and together with them also to penetrate everywhere in the megalocosmos, and to reach even to those planets on which higher being bodies were continuing to arise in beings. And these unusual vibrations began to be transformed and crystallized together with the sacred Theomert Malogos, and to take part in the coding of the higher parts in the beings. And it was from this time on that these sacred arisings began to have in their presences special properties, which were obtained from this, that certain manifestations of other parts of the given being, in whom these sacred arisings were coded, began to enter and to be assimilated in the composition of the presences of these higher parts, and to give also very unusual results, which afterwards came to be called, and are called until now, sins of the body of the soul. Just these same various results served as a cause for this, that these cosmic formations, even if they had in their perfecting reached to the required gradation of objective reason, yet they had ceased to correspond in their common presences to the conditions of existence in the sphere of the most holy protocosmos, and from that time on, they lost the possibility of being deemed worthy to unite themselves with it. Well then, when this helpless position of these higher being bodies, who had become independent cosmic sacred individuals perfected in reason, but who were not